Hey there, ancient game fans! Today we're going to be diving way back in history to learn all about the royal game of Ur. We're going to be traveling back 4,500 years, all the way to ancient Mesopotamia, where the first instances of smack talk over a board game were ever found. Don't quote me on that though. Today I'm going to walk you through this ancient relic and teach you some moves that are worthy of a Mesopotamian king. So grab your dice, get your little tokens, and get ready for a game fit for royalty. Alright, so let's get this board ready. So you can see the board itself is in an I shape, with a little tail on the end. Has a nice little bridge connecting the top half from the bottom half as well. The board itself has three major sections. We have the top area here, the bridge which connects the two areas, and lastly the bottom area. Now you're going to want to go around in a little curve, almost as if you're in two separate racetracks trying to get to the end first. Each player starts off with 7 tokens, and while you can choose any color you want, I personally really enjoy classic black and white. But if you've got some other of your favorite colors, feel free to show off that Mesopotamian chic. And lastly, you're going to need 4 tetrahedral dice. But if you're looking for regular terms, it's a regular 4-sided die. But it's going to have 2 white dots on 2 of the 4 sides. These will be used to represent your movement in the game. So make sure to keep a bunch of them handy. So when you roll, you're going to be rolling 4 of these tetrahedral dice at a time. And depending on the number of white dots that are displayed on top, that's how far your pieces are able to move. In this case, I got 2 white tips, so that means that I get to move my piece 2 spaces. So let's dive into the goal of this game. Your objective is to take all 7 of your pieces and swing them around the board, rolling dice to see how far you're able to go, and get all 7 of your pieces into the ending area before your opponent's able to do so. But you gotta watch out, because you and your opponent can attack each other when you're in this middle column, also known as the war zone. But then you can also bump your opponents. If you land on one of their squares, then you can bump them back to the beginning and say out loud and proud, as if you're Mesopotamian nobility, saying, "Out of my way, peasant!" Both players start off with no pieces on the board. But if you roll anything from a 1 to a 4, then you'll be able to put one of your pieces on the board. However, if you get unlucky and roll all blanks, then unfortunately, you wasted a turn. No sneaking any pieces onto the board early, because this goes against ancient law. So after you get some of your pieces on the board, each of your rolls is going to indicate how far you'll be able to move. Well, sounds simple, right? Well, just a little bit of a complication there, because you're only allowed to move forward. There's no going back to relive in the old glory days. So let's talk about the rosettes. These rosettes are these 8-leaf clover looking symbols, where if you land on one of them, then your piece is completely safe and cannot be captured, and you also get to roll again, which that's pretty nice, huh? You do have to watch out, however, because both you and your opponent are going to seize any possible opportunity to claim those lucky spaces. Your first rosette is going to be on your first square, but then the next rosette is going to be another 6 squares beyond. Lastly, if you want one more rosette, it's going to be an additional 4 squares away. But don't worry, I believe that you'll have some good luck on your rolls. Now, if you want to get one of your pieces off the board, then you're going to have to be pretty lucky, because you're going to have to roll the exact amount of spaces to get your piece off the board. If you have one piece that's just the very last space, then you'll need to roll a 1 if you want to get it off. Because you got to remember, whether it's advantageous or not, you always have to move forward. So, you've got the basics, but now let's teach you how to play like you're a Mesopotamian champ. First off, if you're falling behind, don't be afraid to bump your opponent's spaces, because you'll be sending them all the way back to the beginning. That'll give you a little bit of an extra edge as you continue your way forward. Next, you should use your rosettes wisely, because there's only a few of them on the board, and not only do they provide safe haven, but you'll get that coveted extra turn. Make sure that you take advantage of them at any opportunity possible, because they're a real game changer. Lastly, don't cluster up. because if you do so, then your opponent can easily land on your pieces and send it all the way back to the beginning. You gotta think with a little bit more strategy as you try to roll on ahead. Whether it requires you to leave a separation of 2 or 3 squares in between your pieces, or it leads to you just going one at a time. You just gotta be careful as you lead your way to victory. The first player to get all 7 of their pieces off the board wins the game, but you have to remember that you have to roll it to the exact amount of spaces to get off the board. You might have just 1 piece remaining on that very last square, but you'll be at the mercy of the dice to see if you have what it takes to finally claim your Mesopotamian crown. And that's the royal game of While it may look simple, while you're dashing for these rosettes and safety squares, while bumping off your opponents, the game can get heated quite fast. This game has lasted for thousands of years, so I think it's got something good going for it. Also, I'd like to imagine that in ancient Mesopotamia, if 2 people had beef, then they'd probably say, fine, let's settle it over a game of So, next time someone challenges you to a modern game, why don't you pull this one out and say, why don't we play a game with a little bit more history? Thanks for joining me on this ancient adventure. If you enjoyed, make sure to pick up a copy and play like an ancient king or queen. Your choice. But, for now, hope you have a great rest of your day.